The roar of Jake "Grim" Grayson's Harley echoed through the quiet town as he pulled into the gas station, the evening sun bleeding orange across the horizon. The old Marine had spent the last few years living low, keeping to himself, finding solace in the rumble of his bike and the open road. This town wasn't much, but it was his kind of quiet. No war zones, no firefights, just a place where a man could ride, drink his coffee in peace, and not have to look over his shoulder. But tonight, that peace was about to be shattered. As Jake rolled to a stop, he noticed them immediately. The Iron Serpents. A new breed of bikers, younger, rowdier, the kind that cared more about causing chaos than respecting the road. No brotherhood, no honor. Just loud, arrogant punks who thought they owned every place they parked their rides. There were about 8 of them, their bikes parked haphazardly, laughing loudly, tossing beer bottles against the side of the gas station wall. Jake had dealt with men like them before, on the battlefield and off it. Undisciplined, cocky, dangerous, but only in numbers. He wasn't looking for trouble though, not tonight. So he did what any smart man would do, ignored them, filled up his tank, and kept his head down. But trouble? Trouble always found a way. One of them, leather vest, shaved head, tattoos crawling up his neck, spotted him and let out a mocking whistle. Well, look at this guy. Thinks he's some kind of road warrior. Jake didn't bite. He had nothing to prove. Another one, a tall, lanky kid barely old enough to have a license, stepped closer, eyeing his bike. Damn, old man, that's one ancient piece of junk. Surprised it still runs. Jake tightened his grip on the gas nozzle, but said nothing, just kept filling up. Hey, we're talking to you, Pops! The tattooed one barked, stepping in closer. Jake slowly turned his head, his ice-cold blue eyes locking onto the punk. A lifetime of combat, of staring down real threats, had made his gaze a weapon all on its own. For a moment, just a moment, the kid hesitated. Then, like most insecure loudmouths, he covered his nerves with a smirk. Ah, come on, Grandpa. Relax. Ain't no war here, just a couple of friendly bikers having some fun. Jake turned back to his bike, finishing up, not giving them the reaction they wanted. That a Marine patch? Another voice sneered. Guess that makes sense. Bet you spent your whole life getting told what to do. Probably don't know how to think for yourself, huh? Jake breathed in slow, steady. This wasn't his fight. Not yet. He put the gas pump back, climbed onto his bike, and without another glance, rode off into the night. The serpents? They laughed as he left. But what they didn't know was that silence wasn't surrender. Jake's night ended as it always did. A couple of beers, a good book, the sound of crickets outside his small garage. But the next morning, everything changed. He stepped outside and froze. His Harley was wrecked. Slashed tires, gas tank dented, handlebars twisted like a corpse's broken limbs. The Marine Corps insignia on the side had been defaced with black spray paint. A note taped to the seat. Not so tough now, huh? Jake stood there, breathing slow, steady, staring at the destruction like it was just another battlefield. He could feel the familiar tightness in his chest, the one he used to get right before a mission. They had no idea what they just started. Jake didn't call the cops, didn't yell, didn't panic. He just walked back inside, poured himself a coffee, and picked up his phone. A lifetime ago, there were men he trusted more than family, men who had fought beside him, bled beside him, men who, even after the war, never stopped being his brothers. And Jake had never needed them more than he did now. By noon, the first bike rolled into town, then another, then 6 more. A convoy of roaring engines, veterans, men who wore the same scars Jake did, who knew what it meant to have each other's backs, no questions asked. Jake stood at the entrance to his garage as the last bike pulled in, a grizzled man with salt and pepper stubble climbing off. Heard you got some punks who need a lesson, the man said, grinning. Jake nodded once. They wrecked my bike. The men looked at the ruined Harley, their expressions darkening. Then they wrecked the wrong bike. Jake turned to his squad, his old Marine brothers, and his voice was steady as steel. Saddle up, boys. We're paying a visit. The sound of engines roared to life, a mechanical growl that sent vibrations through the pavement. And as they rolled out, Jake knew. The Iron Serpents thought they could get away with it. But by tonight, they'd know exactly how wrong they were. The thunder of motorcycles filled the morning air, rolling through the quiet streets like an approaching storm. Jake Grayson led the pack, his old squad at his back, their engines growling like the ghosts of wars past. This wasn't just about a wrecked Harley, this was about respect. And tonight, the Iron Serpents were going to learn the hard way that Marines don't forget. The Serpents had set up shop at a rundown bar on the outskirts of town, a place called Red Jack's, the kind of dive where the music was loud, the beer was cheap, and trouble was always waiting in the back corner. Jake pulled his squad to a slow stop outside, the once quiet lot now filled with roaring engines and heavy stares. Inside, the Serpents were laughing, tossing back beers, completely oblivious to what was about to roll through their front door. That was until the bar's double doors swung open and the laughter died on their lips. Jake walked in first, calm, unshaken. Behind him, his brothers filed in, one by one, a wall of men who had fought and bled together. The bartender, a haggard-looking man in his 50s, froze in place. He knew what was coming. The Iron Serpents turned, confused at first, then wary. Corey, the same tattooed punk who mocked Jake at the gas station, stood up slowly. "You lost, Grandpa?" he sneered. "This is our bar. Take your old man club somewhere else." Jake didn't blink, didn't flinch. He just took another step forward, his boots echoing against the wooden floor. Then, he did something that sent a chill through the entire bar. He smiled, but it wasn't friendly. It was a wolf smile, the kind that comes right before the kill. "You boys had your fun last night, but now it's my turn." Corey laughed, trying to shake off the growing unease. "What, you here to file a complaint? Maybe call our moms?" The Serpent snickered, but then Jake did something that shut them up instantly. He reached into his jacket. For a split second, every Serpent tensed, hands twitching toward their belts. But Jake didn't pull a gun. He pulled out the ruined Marine Corps insignia from his bike, and he tossed it onto their table. The metal clattered against the wood, the symbol of his brotherhood, his blood, his sacrifice, covered in spray paint. The Serpents stared at it. A few of them shifted uncomfortably, because even idiots know when they've crossed a line. Jake's voice was low, steady. "You want to play tough? Fine." He took another step forward, his old squad closing in behind him. "But you messed with a man who spent his life fighting real monsters. And let me tell you something." His voice dropped to a dangerous whisper. "You ain't monsters? You're just a bunch of punks who never had someone teach you what real fear feels like." Corey huffed, shaking his head. "You're insane," Jake smirked. "No, son, I'm disciplined, and that's something you and your boys are about to learn firsthand." The first punch was thrown before Corey could blink. A brutal right hook from Jake's second-in-command, Riker, a towering man built like a wrecking ball. The impact sent Corey sprawling backward, knocking over a chair. Then, all hell broke loose. The Serpents lunged, but they were too slow, too untrained. Jake's squad? They had fought in real wars. This question mark. This was a warm-up. A Serpent swung a pool cue at Riker. He caught it midair and broke it over his knee. Tyson, one of the Serpents, grabbed a bottle, only for Jake to slam his head into the bar. Another punk tried to jump one of Jake's men from behind, only to get flipped over the table. It was over in minutes. The Iron Serpents were left groaning on the floor, dazed and broken. Jake knelt beside Corey, who was clutching a busted lip, eyes wide with fear. He reached out, grabbed Corey's leather serpent vest, and ripped it off his back. "You don't deserve to wear this." Corey didn't argue, didn't say a word, because now he knew. By the time Jake and his squad walked out of Red Jack's, the town had gone silent. The bartender didn't say a word, just gave them a small nod of respect. Jake climbed onto his newly repaired Harley, his brothers doing the same. As the engines roared to life, he turned back once, just once, to the Serpents still inside the bar, licking their wounds. Then, with one last smirk, he revved his engine, and they rode into the night, leaving behind the lesson they'd just taught. The Iron Serpents? They left town within the week. No one saw them again. No one missed them. And Jake, he went back to his quiet life, his long rides, his cold beers. But now, everyone knew. This wasn't a town for punks. This was Marine country, and some wars. Some wars never really end.